Hey, welcome back, everybody. I'm glad you guys are joining me today. And today I have a special guest going to be diving into an issue that came up recently over the weekend, especially, or maybe been at the tail end of last week. The RNC has changed a couple things on its platform, and it really has have a lot of concern with people like me and others out there. I'm bringing Rob on to talk a little bit more about it today because I think it's worth talking about and to really evaluate where we are. I know there's a lot of Trump supporters who are staunch conservatives, staunch Christians, and they believe in and the definition of what marriage is, and they believe that life begins at conception. And with some of these new directions that the RNC is taking, many people worry, is the Republican Party leaving traditional conservatives out? And to talk a little bit more about that today is my guest, Rob Noerr from Rob Noerr channel over there, Normal America. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you so much. Always an honor to be here.
Yeah, Rob. So, as expected, Laura Trump took control of the RNC, and that is basically an arm of Trump. Looking over at the RNC. So Trump has effectively taken over the Republican Party for what it's worth, right? We are now headed in a MAGA direction. But what does that really mean for conservatives? Because with this new layout of the Republican national platform, we see some things that we've traditionally seen in the past. The commitment to abortion, or life starts at conception, and of course the definition of marriage between a man and a woman, really have people kind of worried that the Republican Party is leaving them behind because it's not popular enough for them to win elections. Whereas conservatives, traditional conservatives like myself, have said as long as you're bold and you have the arguments on your side, you can effectively have change and be able to still win elections holding these positions. What do you say, Rob?
So it's weird because I don't know that I'm the best speaker on this, seeing as how there is no doubt in my mind Frank is more conservative than me. I consider myself a populist and sort of a libertarian conservative, though I'm definitely conservative, and I share the frustration that I feel issues that I consider conservative, such as fiscal conservatism or sort of family values conservatism, I don't think the Republican Party is accurately represented even since before the times of Trump. For example, fiscal conservatism, Republicans are the party of spending an insane amount of money. Democrats are the party of spending just a little more insane amount of money. The same is true with like sort of social values. Republicans are always just 4 years behind Democrats on many of these social issues, it seems. So there's two ways of looking at this. For me, the biggest issue that I see is corruption, and I want to see a potential outsider, even if they don't share my religious or cultural beliefs, get into the system so hopefully they could help demolish the system within so that we can see people that have values that more align with mine eventually take over these parties. I don't know if it's possible with the corruption that we see right now to have someone accept a very sort of unique figure like a independently wealthy person like Donald Trump that doesn't rely on the machinations of the system in order to be able to obtain power. So I understand, and I definitely supported Trump in 2016, and even though he wasn't my first choice this time, I would have preferred someone like DeSantis. I did support him and will continue to support him through this election. But it is true that because of the cultural losses, because so many people in the Republican movement have given up or haven't been articulate or haven't been successful at fighting sort of the narrative control that we see with all these institutions on the left, they feel the easiest way to win on these issues is just sort of to move further to the left. So things like gay marriage and things like abortion. It doesn't matter what my opinion on these are. If you're looking at it through the perspective of people that are for traditional conservative values and are against this, who is their party? And it becomes very difficult. I guess the best news I would give for people is that maybe right now it's the best we could do to win elections, that people are going that direction in the National Republican Party. And the best way to fight back politically is that you engage in the primary system. So many people just think that, oh, the general election's all that matters. But if you get a garbage rhino or fake conservative that wins your primary and you have to choose between them as the lesser of two evils than a Democrat, you're never going to get the conservative shift that you want. The worst thing about the Republican Party, well, I don't know if it's the worst thing, it's one of many bad things, is that in the states that are the most deep red and the most conservative, we get the least conservative Republican representatives that come out. So a place like Utah will produce someone like Mitt Romney. And so until that changes and until people start saying, no, in the deep red areas, we're going to push the most conservative candidates because they're safe and they're going to win. And then maybe you could forgive in a swing state, in a district that's like a toss-up like New York. You might say, okay, we have a more moderate conservative. That would direct the Republican Party to the conservative direction better than what we see in the status quo, which is basically a bunch of people that only want to put their eggs in the presidential basket, and then they're shocked to find out that turns out Donald Trump isn't really a conservative. And so as long as he's the head of the movement, I see a lot of reason for traditional conservatives to lose hope that the party will get back to representing their values. So, I understand the perspective, and I would say the best you could hope for at this point is Trump gets in there, sort of lays the groundwork for hopefully who comes in 2028 is someone who's even more conservative.
And I know that is the talking point for many of the online conservative influencers out there, is that in order to effectively have change, you're going to have to hold your nose and just trust us on this, because we will get more conservative once we get in there. But that really hasn't been the case traditionally. Whenever we take that step progressively left, we never go backwards. We just kind of inch a little bit further, slower, as you mentioned, slower to the left. And don't get me wrong, I am all for President Trump at this in this election, because I do understand that there can be change. There's an opportunity to effectively have change if he goes through with demolishing the systems from within. However, if he does not demolish the systems from within, we have now effectively lurched further left for no future gain. And that is, I know that is a concern for so many who, again, consider themselves more conservative than maybe populism.
Yeah, and listen, there's obviously each specific issue is different, right? So it would be erroneous to just say conservatism is popular or conservatism is unpopular, because there are specific issues, abortion, gay marriage, immigration, fiscal conservatism, etc., that I would think that if you could get an accurate polling of the American people, that it's going to be different on each of these issues. But to speak to what you're saying, I think we need to look only at the Tories in the UK to see the dangers of what you're suggesting. So the Tories were basically conservative in name only. They basically governed as if they were just Labour, as if they were a left-wing party. And so what happened this year? Well, after years of Tory control, basically the people gave up on them. They said, we're not going to turn out to vote for conservatives anymore that are just liberal lights. And so even though approval for Labor didn't go through the roof, Labor wins in a landslide, because it turns out when people vote conservative, you know what they want? Conservatives. And so often there's such a fear to run on issues that conservatives want, because the cultural mechanisms that control our narrative are so controlled by sort of the secularists and the people on the left that it's deemed, we buy the smoke that they're selling and the American people must not like our point of view. And that's just not true on many of these issues. For example, one issue I can give Trump credit for is immigration. It was the standard Republican talking point for years to basically not make headway on immigration. Trump was told by people surrounding him in 2016 it was a losing issue not to focus on it, and probably the single biggest policy issue that made people interested in Trump was his accurate portrayal of the border situation and how Americans, even many that identify as Democrat or identify as people of color, they hated the illegal immigration problem. So there was an example of where all of the Republican Party and the people that are around it and the people that are strategizing were absolutely incorrect. Who's to say the same's not true of an issue like abortion? The problem with the issue on abortion, I don't think it's as much who's right and who's wrong as far as what the American people believe. It's that the Republicans are allowing themselves to be painted as monsters by the Democrat instead of accurately portraying the situation, which are the Democrats are for abortions even into the third trimester and want no law restricting it. But Republicans aren't good at crafting that message and cracking through, and so they allow the Democrats and this sort of, cult that their entire religion is based on sacrificing children, they allow them to have this perceived moral high ground. And there's a question to be asked of the American people. If the American people say, well, we're worth that sacrifice to help us and the rest of our country, is it worth saving? And it's a serious question worth asking. So, I think that Republicans, as always, are caving in as opposed to sticking to people. People want a party and politicians that stick to their principles and have a grounding in why they have their moral and principle beliefs. And unfortunately, I don't think we get that with the Republican Party much.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on to kind of shed a little bit more light on that. And of course, we all are hoping, I'm voting Trump, and I'm hoping for that change. I'm hoping that he does follow through on some of these promises and follows through on some of these issues, and where it does knock down some of the infrastructure on the inside to where there can be change and growth can happen in there. So, Rob, thank you for joining us for this discussion about the RNC change and how that can impact future elections. I do appreciate that. Make sure you come back next time and join me and Rob as we discuss the Biden musical chair thing, where who are the Democrats really going to back come the convention? What kind of problems does that provide them moving forward? So, Rob, always a pleasure having you on. Make sure you follow Rob on all the links down below. And until next time, we'll see you guys later. Have a great day.